This is an AVNation special, one-on-one with Dr. Michio Kaku. This is an AVNation special. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. Also along with me is George Tucker. Integrated Systems Europe 2016 starts February 9th, goes 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Actually, on that Friday, Dr. Michio Kaku is going to be speaking at the closing keynote. He's going to be talking about technology in general, futurist, and also the perfect capitalism. Joining us today to talk about his keynote address and where he sees technology and AV going, Dr. Michio Kaku. Welcome, sir.
Yes, hi.
How are you?
Very good.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Right.
You are presenting the Friday keynote, closing keynote for Integrated Systems Europe. Give me kind of an oversight. Give me a sense of your take on not just the AV industry, but technology in general. And one of the things that you're going to talk about is the future of business and how it's going to be in the outline for ISE. It says a perfect capitalism. What exactly does that mean?
Right. Okay, good. Well, the talk is going to be in two parts. First of all, I'll talk about the technology of a daily life in 2020. Chips will cost, going down to about a penny in the next decade or 2 decades, meaning that intelligence will be everywhere and nowhere, like electricity. We don't even think about it. It's under our feet, it's in the walls, the ceiling. Electricity is everywhere, and it's almost for free. That's the way it's going to be when chips cost a penny. So the Internet will also be everywhere and nowhere, including your contact lens. So you simply blink, and you will be online. And when you want to talk to a doctor, you'll talk to the wallpaper, because wallpaper is going to be intelligent. And RoboDoc will appear in your wall, giving you sound medical advice from the Internet, almost for free, speaking perfect English or whatever. And if you're in a car accident, you'll talk to your wristwatch and talk to a robo-lawyer. Again, it'll access the entire legal literature, give you sound legal advice, speak in a very plain language. And so you'll have almost infinite expert information just by blinking in your contact lens or by talking to the wallpaper where you have intelligence in the wallpaper. And then at night, when you relax, your TV will have 3D without glasses. That's been the holy grail for television for the last 50 years, and we finally have it now. We can actually now create lenticular screens that give you 3D without glasses at all. The secret, by the way, is in the screen. The screen consists of thousands of vertical lines, invisible vertical lines that cut the image in half. Each vertical line is a prism. One half goes to the left eye, one half goes to the right eye, and you have 3D just by staring at a screen. And then when you talk to people, your contact lens will identify who they are, print out their biography, if you so desire, and translate from English into Chinese. So you'll see subtitles of people speaking to you in whatever language you want. So we'll have information everywhere and nowhere. Now, what does this mean for the economy? What it means for the economy is that all these gadgets that give you information anywhere, anytime, almost for free, is going to change the laws of supply and demand. In other words, supply and demand become perfect. So when you go to a store, your contact lens will scan all the goods in the store and tell you who has the cheapest product, who's cheating you, who has the best product, and basically give you instantaneous information about what's available. Perfect understanding of goods and services. Meanwhile, the companies will also have perfect understanding of the demographics of people who are buying their products. Data mining, big data. It also means more efficiency, more convenience, but more competition. So if you ignore this technology, you will go bankrupt. That's the nature of capitalism. Unless you start to put chips in your products, unless you start to adopt this technology, your competitor will, and basically drive you out of business. So you have to be like a surfer. You have to see the waves as they come by, get on the wave, and then ride the wave to riches and fortune. If you go against the wave or ignore the wave, you will go bankrupt. Now, this also has an impact not just on the economy, but also obviously the job market. When you have robo-lawyer that is artificially intelligent, costing pennies, then somebody will lose a job. And the people that lose a job will be people involved with clerical skills, bean counting, inventory, keeping track of things, agencies. Those jobs will gradually be phased out because computers are adding machines. We forget that. They add millions of times faster than us, so we think they're intelligent, but they're not intelligent at all. They're simply very sophisticated adding machines. And because they can add better than you, those jobs that involve things like clerical skills will gradually be phased out. For example, in a law firm, you have paralegals. These paralegals are not lawyers. They don't have a degree, but they look at precedents. They do the busy work. They file the papers. They type up the manuscripts and stuff like that. Those kinds of jobs will be phased out. But we will still have lawyers because you have to interface with humans. You have to talk to the judge. You have to talk to a jury. Laws change all the time, and you have to understand people's thinking process. This means that those jobs will survive. Also, jobs involving pattern recognition will survive in the future. For example, gardeners, garbage men. We think that garbage men will be put out of business. Actually, that's not true because robots are very bad at recognizing patterns. They see much better than us, but they don't understand what they are looking at. They don't understand the essence of a chair or table. They understand the lines, circles, squares that make up a table, but they don't understand tableness. So garbage men pick up garbage. Every garbage is different. Every garden is different. Every construction site is different. Every crime is different. This means that policemen, construction workers, sanitation workers, garbage men, they will have jobs in the future. But college-educated agents may be phased out because they're the middlemen. They do a lot, basically clerical things, hooking people up together, and agency work will gradually be phased out as well. And then I tell the audience that you in the audience are among the winners because you don't involve simply clerical skills. You deal with innovation, dealing with the consumer. You have to understand what people want. Computers don't understand this. They're clueless when it comes to that because they're adding machines. And so you in the audience are winners because you are pioneering this technology. You understand the market. You understand what people want. And you also understand the state of the technology. So that, in a nutshell, is what I'm going to be talking about. I'll show pictures of these things, too. Some people don't believe that we're going to be able to do these things, so I'll show pictures of them to show that we can actually do most of what I talked about.
Well, and a couple of years ago, you were on a show looking at the future of and I believe it was 2030 is where you guys were headed in that program. Right. There are some of those things though that are already happening, right?
Right. Yeah. Isn't that incredible?
Well, it is. So take us through it because you're talking about some pretty incredible things. Not that I'm asking you to redo the entire program, but on that spectrum, are we in line with where you thought we would be? Are we ahead? Are we behind?
Pretty much. I wrote a book called Visions about 20 years ago where I predicted that we would have an internet, that the internet would be in our glasses, that we would be able to send files everywhere around the world. A lot of people didn't believe me because they don't understand Moore's law, that computer power doubles every 18 months. And if you simply project from 20 years ago to today, you see that many of the predictions I made are very logical. For example, I said we would have personal genomics. One biologist actually practically denounced me and said, this is outrageous, that I'm misleading the public saying that we're going to have personal genomics. Well, surprise, surprise, we already have it now. They advertise it on television. In fact, it costs about $500 to have your complete genome sequenced by any of these reputable genomic companies. So Moore's law has been driving us forward, and therefore we can predict reasonably out to the next 10 years. Beyond that, Moore's law begins to slow down appreciably. In fact, Moore's law is already beginning to slow down. You talk to any physicist, and they'll tell you that we can see the end now of Moore's law. So we're going to be galloping for the next 10 years, but it will slow down, and we will have to go to the next generation beyond silicon, which is basically not ready yet. So we can reasonably predict for the next 10 to 15 years. Beyond that, like I said, Moore's law slows down. It becomes more difficult to predict.
If I may, you talk about, especially in the past conversations, about this vision of the future and how it's going to be all comprehensive. We now are at the stage where you have really high-end mesh networks and the Internet of Things, and wearables seems to be the buzzword for our industry. But how soon do you see us getting to, say, embeddables, that biological that they're already doing with some of the biohacking companies, and that'll be a huge shift in sociological norms?
That's going to take more time. When it comes to silicon, we have sensors, silicon technology chips that are galloping along because of etching technology. I'm a physicist. I know how these things work. And ultraviolet radiation is used to etch tinier and tinier transistors on a chip. However, when you start to interface with biological systems, okay, you have all sorts of complications. You have rejection mechanisms. You have infection. You have all the peculiarities of the human body. And so it's not going to be as quick as most people expect. So sensors that are placed on the skin or perhaps on the scalp or whatever, they will go galloping forward because, of course, it's nothing but Moore's law. But when you start to penetrate the skin, when you start to go into the body, like, for example, interface with the brain, then things become a lot slower. Now, I wrote a book called The Future of the Mind 2 years ago, which was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, by the way, which talks about the next 20 years when we will access the brain. But right now, we're just at the brink of doing very preliminary things with the brain. For example, recording a memory. That was once considered impossible, but we do it now with animals, with mice. We can now record memories and, in fact, insert false memories into mice. That's also been done. So because it is biological and because it requires an interface, it's slower than we would like. So I think there's a certain amount of hype around biological interfaces, but progress is not going to be as fast as with silicon technology, which is straightforward Moore's law.
Okay, so you've mentioned Moore's law a couple of times, and almost the end of Moore's law. What's after that?
That's right. We're at the tail end of Moore's law.
So what happens? I mean, not to be too simplistic about it, but what happens at the end of Moore's law? Is there something more, or is that it?
Well, we are facing the end of the age of silicon. Okay, that's propelled us for the last 50 years. However, we can see the end now. We're now etching on molecules, things that are almost molecular in size. Your Pentium chip has a layer about 20 atoms across. In 10 years, it'll be about 5 atoms across. At that point, two things happen. One is heat is generated, and second, you have leakage because of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. You don't know where the electron is anymore. Quantum mechanics takes over, which is my field, and basically the transistor leaks and you have short circuits. Therefore, we quantum physicists are trying to extrapolate to the next post-silicon era, and right now nothing is ready yet. The hope is molecular transistors will replace silicon transistors, but they're not ready yet. The far future, like in a 50-year time frame, may be quantum computers, but quantum computers are not ready yet. The maximum we can compute with a quantum computer is on 5 atoms. 3 times 5 is 15 is the most advanced calculation ever done on a quantum computer. And that was done on 5 atoms, which is remarkable. But 3 times 5 is 15 is not going to sell you any laptop computers. So the short answer is we don't know. Some people predict we could flatten out for several decades until we begin to learn how to create molecular transistors. But the short answer is we physicists don't know. And don't believe it if anyone tells you that they know what the post-silicon era is going to look like. They basically don't know what they're talking about.
Dr. Kaku, in the past you've spoken about, and just on this show, about the competition in the business and that it has to develop and has to grow. With this growing development and the technological reach, are we seeing the end of that proprietary system, and is that where you see it going?
No. First of all, capitalism is going to be the main driving factor. People will invest because they want a return on their investment. And if everything is for free, then of course there's no incentive to innovate. So I think there'll be a combination of both. In other words, certain things will be open sourced, and that will accelerate progress because standardization allows you to prune away things that are not as efficient, not as adaptable, and becomes like a norm. For example, when Microsoft came along, the Microsoft system was not the best, but it became a standard. And that accelerated the development of things that are proprietary, that use Microsoft technology. So I do not think that everything is going to become open source, because that would then squash innovation. I think there's going to be a back and forth between things that are open source, which clears the way, which prunes away all the dead ends and all the things that didn't work well, and allows for standardization. But within that standardization, we're going to have lots of entrepreneurs who want to latch onto that, to put their stamp on it, to make money. So you're going to have, companies like Apple, for example, put forth an operating system, but then people will write apps for it, and these will be proprietary, and that will help to stimulate more interest, in fact, in Apple. So there's a back and forth that takes place between a standardized operating system like Apple or Microsoft, and all the companies that want to latch onto this and propel themselves into the future.
All right,
so it's like a love-hate relationship, basically.
All right, absolutely. Well, Dr. Kaku, I know you have to get going. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next week. If people are interested in either your books or following you on social media, how would they do so?
Go to my website, mkaku.org, mkaku.org. I have about 2.7 million people following me on Facebook.
Wow.
And about 350,000 people following me on Twitter.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, sir. And we'll see you in Amsterdam.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Michio Kaku. For more information, you can go to his website, mkaku.com. This has been an AVNation special. I'm Tim Albright.